Alrighty, well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are, everybody. Welcome back to our monthly webinar that we've got. This month, we're going to be focusing on the embedded workflow builder and specifically a feature that's coming out here pretty soon, called our AI Copilot for the embedded workflow builder. I feel a little presumptuous in saying this that it's basically the Claude for low code, but it kind of is. It's a feature that I'm really stoked about getting out the door here because it really just helps your low code users who are in the embedded workflow builder explain in plain English what they want, and then the workflow builder goes and builds it. Before I get too far ahead of myself here, though, my name's Taylor Reese. I'm a developer experience engineer here at Prismatic. To kick things off here today, I want to start with a poll because I'm interested in how you're currently using the embedded workflow builder, or what sort of users you have in your embedded workflow builder. Do you almost exclusively have power users that are building complex workflows and they're doing it, autonomously, independently? Do you have a mix of kind of power users and less technical users? Maybe you've got a lot of less technical users who are maybe struggling with the adoption of the low code builder, and it might be a challenge for them. Or it might be the case that you're just curious about EWB, the embedded workflow builder, and haven't deployed it to customers yet. While you're punching in your answers, a couple of bookkeeping notes here. The webinar is going to be recorded today, so if you do need to drop out midway, or if you want to share a recording with your teammates afterwards, we'll have a link sent out via email and we'll post it in our docs in just the next couple days or so. If you have any questions as we go, we've got a couple of people in our team in the Zoom chat, but otherwise, post a message on the bottom of Zoom in the QA box, and we'll have a dedicated QA time towards the end of the session. Last announcement I want to talk about. We've expanded our developer relations team recently, which I'm pretty happy about to have some additional people in the DevRel world. And with that, we're going to start putting out a lot more educational content. So we've kind of branded all of the educational content that we're going to be putting out as Prismatic Labs. And then this webinar, the monthly webinar we've been doing, where we've been going through like hands-on walkthroughs and deep dives and that sort of thing, we're going to be calling the Prismatic Labs Workshop. So we're going to continue to be doing this kind of monthly cadence of deep diving into a particular topic. But in addition to that, keep your eyes open for on our newly minted YouTube channel and whatnot. We're going to have a bunch more educational content come out, and we're pretty excited about our little like mascot named Orby now has a lab coat, and little cute things like that. But we'll have some cool stuff coming out here in the near future. Looked like by the way of that poll that we had out there was a lot of like mostly less technical users trying to adopt the low code, but running into some problems, which is great because that's exactly what this AI agent is for. So I'm going to flip the script a little bit on what I normally do for some of these webinars. I'm going to start with a demo right away rather than yammering on like crazy. So I'm going to start with the what is this embedded workflow builder and the AI Copilot that we're releasing. And then we'll get into a little bit of the like why would you want to use it, and some specifics in how to best build custom connectors and for the embedded workflow builder and the AI Copilot, and how to get it into your app and whatnot. So let's start with that what question. What is the AI Copilot for the embedded workflow builder? And to answer that, I want to just dive straight into a live demo of the thing. Taking off my Prismatic hat for a moment and putting on one of your customer hats, I am Jane Doe. I'm some project manager logged into your app here, and your app is called Acme, and I want to do stuff within your app. Specifically, I look through your marketplace of integrations. I see that you don't exactly have an integration that suits the exact need that I have. Um, and so I can go ahead and within your app, go into the workflow builder. I can edit existing workflows or I can create a new one. When I create a new one, I can either choose one of the templates that you, Acme, have generated. Maybe you've created some templates to do some common tasks in the workflow builder, or I can go ahead and just create a net new workflow for myself. I'm going to call my workflow something like the widget approval workflow. And imagine that, your company's Acme and you help your customers manage their widgets. Obviously a super contrived example, but insert whatever you do here. Um, in this case, we're going to say that Acme helps their customers manage widgets and sync widgets with other apps they use. Now, previously, a user, after naming their workflow, would choose a trigger from a list of triggers, and then they'd go through the workflow just like our integration designer that org users can use and add steps and branches and loops and whatnot. But now we've got this new build with AI option. So I'm going to select build with AI instead. And I want to give my AI a prompt with plain English to describe the thing that I want to have happen within this workflow. So I, as Jane Doe, I'm going to say something like, when a new widget is created in Acme, take note of its cost. If it's more than $200, let's say, send an approval request in Acme to john.doe at example.com. Otherwise, let's say send a message in Slack announcing the new widget. So at no point in my prompt here am I saying specifically I want to have this trigger or a branch step or what steps and what actions, what components I want to use. I'm just using plain English to describe the thing I want to have happen. So let's build with AI. On the right-hand side is going to just be the normal workflow builder canvas that you're all well familiar with. But on the left-hand side, our AI agent, our AI Copilot, is running a series of tools that it has access to look for relevant components. It's finding things like the Acme component with a series of actions. Looks like it found some things in Slack. Finding some component details for branch component and whatnot. It did some thinking, so you can kind of look under the curtain and see what exactly it did. But then it's going to come up with some sort of plan to describe what exactly it wants to do to my low code flow in order to make my dream a reality here. This is probably going to feel kind of akin to like being, for you developers on the call, being in your VS Code and you've got Copilot CLI running in a terminal and you kind of prompt it and then you see the diffs as it goes. Feels like a really similar thing. So we're going to get a plan here. It's going to say, hey, I'm going to change up your trigger step to an Acme widget created trigger. Going to add a branch step to see if a cost is more than $200. If it's more than $200, send an Acme approval request over to John Doe. Otherwise, send a Slack message. Here's the stuff that I'm going to do. Cool. Approved. I'm happy with that. After that, it's going to use another series of tools. It'll give me my list of steps that it's going to run, like configuring the step. You might notice in a moment here, this there it goes. The trigger was changed from the default webhook trigger to a custom trigger from the Acme component. So it went ahead and did that step. Next step, I imagine it's going to do some sort of branching here to check if the workflow or the widget costs more than $200. So I can click into here. Currently, the branch step was added but hasn't been configured yet. So hands off the keyboard. It should go ahead and configure the step in just a moment. There we go. So now we've got a condition. It identified that the cost property from the triggers results.body.data.widget.cost, it used the is greater than operator. It knew that it needed to compare this thing to this thing. Is the cost greater than 200 bucks? If so, go down this left-hand branch. And what else is it going to do? It's going to try to create an approval request in the true branch. So it looks like it created an approval request step, hasn't filled in the inputs yet, but should do that there in a moment for us. Filled in John Doe as the approver email. So I didn't explicitly say in my prompt, this needs to be the approver email input for this action, but turns out LLMs are pretty darn good at just matching stuff. Um, we will get some dialogue back and forth if the LLM needs some clarification. Like it identified that the trigger yields an ID, but it just wanted to make sure, like, hey, I'm mapping widget ID to the triggers results body data widget ID. Does that seem about right to you? And you can say, yeah, totally seems right. You keep trucking on the way. Next up, what is it going to do? Add a Slack post message in the false branch. So it should do that in just a moment here. Ask user to configure connections. I bet it's going to be doing a couple of things for me. Anyways, while it's going, the AI Copilot, it's currently in early access. I know some of our customers have gotten a hold of it already and have provided some great feedback about it. Um, it's currently in early access. We're going to be releasing it general availability a little later on. Um, as you all will know, with the software development world, you release something and then you get some feedback and you iterate on it. Right now, our team is in the process of doing a series of epics that are largely centered around the polishing, doing the things like better error handling and retry logic and handling some edge cases that might come up. But here we've got a Slack step that was added, not configured. I'm being prompted now to, within the AI Copilot, add a connection for my Slack step. So I can go ahead and do that. Add a connection for Slack. Yep, I want Acme to be able to access my Slack workspace. Looks good. Configure. But yeah, if you've been testing it out, please continue to give us some feedback. We've got a lot of great feedback so far from our customers that are actively using it right now. Um, and just the feedback's super valuable for us at this point, especially as we're iterating in the kind of last sprint worth of getting the last few pieces in place here. Super valuable to have feedback. All right, what Slack channels? I want you to send something to, let's say, the AI Insider webinar channel. It did a little bit of back and forth asking me what all I wanted as far as configuration goes. There we go, the AI Insider webinar channel. Although I could choose a different channel here in a moment. It's just having me confirm, yeah, you really want the AI Insider webinar channel? I sure do. And then I'm going to love to see what message it provides. The random number generator of an LLM gives me a slightly different message every time, and this one is a little less uh, ASCII or emoji heavy than it is sometimes. But it gave me a nice little widget announcement message. Hey, are you cool with this message that we've got? Yeah, I sure am cool with that message. With the name, category, color, and everything of my widgets. And with that, I've kind of got a workflow that does the thing that I wanted. With a new widget in Acme, take note of its cost. If it's more than 200 bucks, go send an approval request over to somebody. Otherwise, send me a Slack message announcing the new widget. I didn't specify what channel, so it did a little bit of back and forth to tell me what channel to use, but um, otherwise, it's like, hey, I'm kind of good to go at this point. So I might say something like, looks great. Let's test it. So looks great. Let's test the thing. It is going to, hopefully for me, run a test of the workflow in just a moment. Steps created, blah, blah, blah. Maybe it wasn't quite ready to say, test it, yo. Let's test this thing. There we go, running a test. Let's see what it does. I'm gonna have my Slack open here on the side. Looks like the workflow ran. I got a widget from Acme. This is just some placeholder data here. Looked like it was over 200 bucks, so it went ahead and created an approval request, went down the left-hand branch, sent it on over to John Doe. I might go ahead and run just a couple more tests of this workflow. This time around, it sent a widget over to Slack because the cost was under $200. We got a widget that was a piston, it was orange, it was hydraulic, etc. And now I've got like a functional workflow that goes and integrates with Slack. Uh, and at no point did I, as Jane Doe, possibly not very technical project manager over at some fictitious company, at no point did I need to really know a bunch about like HTTP verbs or bearer auth tokens or what endpoint to post a Slack message to. Um, the workflow just kind of came to fruition out of an LLM pondering about some stuff, plus a little bit of back and forth with an end user. All right, so big new shiny. That's the kind of big demo here. So that's like what AI Copilot is. Let's talk a little bit about kind of semantics, like let's talk why embedded workflow builder, why Copilot. So why embedded workflow builder first in general? Uh, you could have infinite monkeys in a room typing on keyboards, and there will still be some types of integrations that you've not yet built, and there's some permutation of workflow that your customers are going to come to you with that you hadn't thought of or you hadn't had time to build yet. So your customers are always going to need some sort of bespoke custom integration. They might have some third party that they're the first customer of yours that's brought it to your attention that they've got some third party they want to integrate with. Or it might even be some internal system that they've got. They had some intern a few years ago build some internal database, and they just need to get all of your data from your app over to their bespoke thing that they've built homemade. And so the workflow builder does a great job at like letting you just go ship some data on over to whatever third party system you want. You're also often going to want to build workflows within your own ecosystem. So like in our example here, this was a bit of both. Like y Jane Doe might have wanted to say when Acme thing happens, depending on the thing, you might want to do other Acme thing. So you might want have a workflow that is not an integration with some third-party app, but it's just like a, hey, Acme sure does a lot of different things. It does managing widgets and it does approval processes. You might want to create a workflow that handles both of those things. But you can also have in that workflow, like, hey, I've got other third-party apps, Slack, insert whatever system you want here that you want to ship on some data on out to. So why AI Copilot then? even with a visual builder, there's a bit of a learning curve, and particularly for those kind of less technical users. Even opening up the HTTP component, um, if they go ahead and down here and they start an HTTP step, not all low tech users know what a get versus patch versus put versus post request is, let alone when you get it, that like your data is probably going to be JSON formatted, etc. The the AI Copilot can really help assist with that. You can within the Copilot just hand over like, hey Copilot, here's some docs or something I copied from some documentation. I sure want to send a request to this third party app, but like I don't really know what these docs mean. It'll really help assist and maybe create a step uh, that generates some payload for an HTTP step, and it identifies from the documentation that it's a post request, so it goes and grabs an HTTP post step, etc. Helps handhold them through authentication and that sort of thing quite a bit better. So less technical users kind of get stuck selecting triggers, configuring steps. Really complex multi-step flows kind of require an understanding of how the connectors work. You kind of need to know like what is a trigger payload actually going to look like, and some of those less technical users might not have a good sense of like you know general primitives of programming like loops or branches or that sort of thing. Um, so friction kind of limits adoption, drives up your support volume, and the real question here is like you want to provide some self-service to every single type of user. You want all of your users to be able to be successful in the low-code builder, rather than having to have this white glove handhold them through every step. Wouldn't it be nice if there was just an AI bot that was able to recommend stuff for them? So that's kind of the why of all of this. What is AI Copilot for the embedded workflow builder? Users describe exactly what they want in plain language, just like we did. It builds in the canvas in real time, like we saw. Users stay in control. They approve, review, approve, refine, edit anything that they want. Um, it runs natively in your embedded experiences. It's not some third-party tool. Behind the scenes, we're hitting like Amazon Bedrock behind the scenes, but it's not like your users need to go install Claude into their low code builder or something like that. It's completely native part of that tool. One thing that I didn't show, two modes, plan mode and auto mode. Plan mode is very verbose about like exactly what it plans to do before it does it. Auto mode is kind of like in Claude. I imagine a lot of us have gotten fed up with giving approvals for every single little diff that shows up. So you just hit the like auto edit mode in Claude. Same sort of thing here in with our AI Copilot. With auto mode, you might say something to the tune of like here's auto mode. Let's get rid of my step just for a moment here. Let's auto mode it and say something like, after the Slack step, I also need to send the same message to MS Teams because for some reason we use Slack and MS Teams at the same time. It'll generate a plan. It'll add, a step automatically for MS Teams and then start doing the prompting for the connection and whatnot. So it's got a plan. It didn't ask me to approve the plan. It's just going to start adding steps, configuring steps, etc. So now the how. This last bit, I want to talk about a couple of things you should be thinking about as you're optimizing your custom connectors and like configuring your Prismatic so that you're ready for the Copilot to start helping your users with the embedded workflow builder. First thing I want to touch on is custom connectors. So if you've not built a custom connector for your own app yet, do it. It's honestly not that hard. Look at our docs, our getting started guide, our examples. You know, with a couple of hours, maybe a day, you can have a real basic connector for your app. I do strongly recommend that you throw some triggers for common things that you might do. In the Acme example, there was like an Acme widget created trigger. Whenever a widget is created, go ahead and make that trigger execute a workflow. Um, two things that I want to show in code here are including example payloads and seamless auth. You might have noticed while my workflow was being created here, um, I'm going to abort this for just a moment here. Uh, while my workflow was being created, you might have noticed that Slack somehow knew the Slack step in the LLM somehow knew that my trigger was going to yield a results.body.data.widget.name, widget.category, widget.color, cost, whether or not it was in stock, created at, etc. Um, how does the LLM know that those are the things a trigger is going to yield without a trigger executing and like running an example execution? Well, it knows ahead of time if you go ahead and include within your trigger an example payload. Example payloads are pretty darn nice because I'm going to go ahead and add a new workflow not using AI for a moment, and I'm going to go ahead and trigger it with a widget created trigger. If I go ahead and add some other step after my trigger and no execution has occurred so far that I can see from my that I can like reference here, this example trigger that I've got over here with a ID and a name of a sprocket and it cost $42.51. That's what's going to be populated in Prismatic's low code designer. Um, and so the LLM can take a look at uh, the shape of the trigger that's been added. It can look at its example payload and then it can make inferences as to how you're going to map data from that trigger, or you can do the same thing with steps. If you add some steps and add some example payloads to your actions as well, um, then you can do the same sort of thing. The LLM can know like what results in action are going to generate, and then it'll know that a widget ID is probably going to come from a .id property, and cost is probably going to come from a .cost property, etc. So that's one big recommendation I have. Include example payloads in your triggers. Have triggers in general for each of the events that might occur within your app. In our docs, I strongly recommend you implement webhooks in your app so that you can say, for a particular workflow, when a widget is created, your app knows that it needs to sling a webhook request over to a trigger in Prismatic to alert them that the thing happened. The other thing that I'd recommend with custom components is having a seamless authentication experience. You might have noticed in here within the workflow builder, I had to authenticate with Slack, and that's something that I think your customers would assume they need to do is if they've added a Slack step to their workflow, they're going to need to authenticate with Slack. But at no point did I as Jane Doe logged into Acme need to authenticate with Acme. And that's because my Acme component itself has a connection for an Acme API key. And rather than having some weird feeling setup where I'm logged into Acme and now I need to provide Acme with an Acme API key, that just feels like a strange process. What I did instead here is for the Acme component, I created an organization activated customer connection. Organization activated customer connection. What that means is I, as Acme, I, as an Acme organization, for each of my customers, created a connection for an AP with an API key for each of my customers that exist. So if I go into like, let's say one of my customers, Hoolie's the example customer that I've got here. Um, I've got an Acme connection for Hoolie with a super secret ABC API key. Um, but by virtue of you as an organization already knowing, like, well, your customer is, Hoolie, they're logged into Acme, let's provide them an Acme API key. By virtue of you creating that org activated customer connection, your customer doesn't need to do anything special with when connecting their workflows to Acme. It feels like a very seamless, just invisible experience over to them. Their Slack connection, on the other hand, I've got a Salesforce connection and a Slack connection as Jane Doe. That's all expected. But I'd strongly recommend that you have some sort of seamless auth available for you for the workflow builder. I guess that does kind of knock out a couple of things over here. Have an org activated customer connection for your app. The other thing that I'd recommend um, is for common applications that you think your customers are going to integrate with often, like if you know that your customers are going to integrate with Slack, you might have noticed that as part of my workflow here, when the LLM was connecting things up and prompted me to connect to Slack, it said specifically Acme would like access to your Slack account. That's because within the Slack component, and we'll go ahead and search for Slack here. Within the Slack component, I created a customer activated customer connection, not an org activated customer connection, but a customer activated customer connection. I went into Slack as an org user and created a Slack OAuth app with some particular scopes that I want to request from my users, etc. And then by virtue of having this and by virtue of toggling this use for embedded workflows on, then whenever one of my customers wants to do something with Slack, they don't need to go create their own Slack app and fill out a client ID and a secret and whatever else for OAuth. They can just simply use the Acme Slack app. So if you have an opportunity, if you can kind of make a list of, let's say the 20 most common apps that you think your customers are going to end up creating workflows for, then whenever your customer encounters that app within the workflow builder, then they have a much easier OAuth experience as they connect out to these third-party systems. Enable for workflows, that's just the thing that I always forget to do. Click this little use for embedded workflows button to make sure this type of connection is used for embedded workflows. Last thing of how do you actually embed this thing in your app? I imagine at this point, most of you have an embedded marketplace, and somewhere in your app, you've got prismatic.show marketplace to make a div within your app have an iframe of Prismatic injected into it. It probably won't surprise you that the workflow builder is pretty similar. You just got to run a prismatic.show workflows instead. So if you already embed Prismatic in your app, it's a single function call. Just make a little space with some div that takes up a decent amount of space in your app somewhere on some page. call them prismatic.show workflows, and that's what will make it so that when you open up the embedded workflow builder here, this is what shows. Couple other notes. Enabling embedded workflow builder per customer. As an organization user, you've got a bunch of customers. In this demo, in this demo thing, I've got two, but let's say in Hooli here under details, I can embed the workflow builder or enable none. I can enable the workflow builder. It might be the case that you've got some customers that are paying you extra money to use the workflow builder in your app, and some customers that are maybe in a different pricing tier that don't have it. So you can turn workflow builder on per customer. You can also enable Copilot per customer as well. So if you've got a couple of customers that, let's say you want to do the early access thing and you want to trial the Copilot with just a couple of customers, you can enable Copilot just for a few customers before enabling it for all of your customers. Last thing I'd strongly recommend you do if you're doing embedded workflow builder, AI or not, we've got event webhooks. And so under event webhooks here, you can alert yourself whenever one of your customers creates, updates, deletes, publishes, enables, disables a workflow that they've built. I kind of like having that on just so I know that, my customer Hooli just created 10 new workflows. I might just want to reach out to the folks at Hooli and make sure things are going great. Or especially if they start deleting a bunch of workflows, like I sure hope they're not having some sort of exit where they're planning on just leaving us. So maybe I can, get some info from Hooli about what's going on. But if I want to be notified that Hooli's doing all this stuff related to workflows, setting up an event webhook that can start slinging you events whenever your customers create or delete webhooks is strongly recommended for you. So, kind of quick demo recap. Users can describe intent, start building workflows. Canvas stays transparent. You can inspect all the steps. You can edit the steps as you go. It's definitely not a black box. AI Copilot runs within your app, within your security boundaries, and the simplicity of conversation with the transparency of a virtual canvas is kind of the tagline we're going with here. That it does really feel like you're having a conversation with just a buddy that knows a little more than you do about how what components are available and whatnot. Yeah, with that, let me pop into some Q&A here and see what all we've got. Holy cow, we've got some good questions here. Let's see. What is the underlying AI tool, Marcus? Great question. We're using Amazon Bedrock behind the scenes for that. Which I think, yeah, as Prismatic team replied, I think it's Claude Sonnet on Bedrock. Are there any token cost for usage? Good question. I think that's something I should have had off the top of my head. I don't know. If you're a private stack, I know you'll end up eating the cost of the tokens going back and forth. Public stack, I'll try to get an answer to you on that, Marcus. Great question on that. Does the Copilot embed an integration with Slack or WhatsApp? Slack, certainly. Thinking of scenario. Okay, I'll read the question here. Does the Copilot embedded in Prismatic's iPaaS support integration with Slack or WhatsApp? I'm thinking of a scenario where I could use the natural language to ask something like, a lead was created in the CRM, but we didn't sync to the ERP. What went wrong? Then Copilot would go and fetch the integration instance, check logs, retrieve the lead ID, and give me a specific answer. Oh, that is a good question. I think let's assume for that question, like that you've built an integration and hmm, yeah, that is a good question. I wonder if that's more of like a you'd need some sort of like debugging AI agent. The AI agent is able to look at execution results in the workflow builder as you build it. Um, I will follow up. I'll follow up, Mr. Miranda, on that one. That is a great question on that. How much context is the does the Copilot have? Other workflows, web links, other documentation? Great question from Nate. Um, yeah, great question. As far as context goes, it's able to query out. I believe it's able to check external documentation and whatnot. Um, I don't. It has tools to check for connectors and actions and triggers that are available and connections that are available. I would need to check with our team if it also has the ability to query for other workflows, Nate. That's a really great question on like what sort of context it has. It certainly has tools on like I said, the it can query for components, it can query for connections and actions and triggers and recent executions that have run. It can look at the recent executions that ran. Um, I'll dig in and see if it can access workflows as well. I'd be super interested to know that the answer to that one as well. Um, if there any other questions, go ahead and throw them in there. Otherwise, I'm interested in what kind of topic you'd love to cover in an upcoming session. So obviously we've done a couple of AI sessions recently. If you want to stick more with that, we've got several AI options here, like the MCP Flow server for production AI agents. Are you interested in building AI agent flows with Prismatic? Uh, the ever-present JSON forms and field mappers. If you're interested in doing some more JSON forms, which you might need to click other there. It looks like that option might be missing from the poll. But building custom components with AI, if you're interested in that. Otherwise, throw anything else in chat there. Um, does the AI builder remain grounded within the specific customer, or is it drawing from other customer flows for lessons learned? We do not want our customers um, prompts leaking into other customers. So we currently don't kind of mix and match. One customer did thing, now the other AI agents know that other customers should do things. So your prompts are currently isolated from other customers, Russell. That that two customers ask two different things, then it won't cross pollinate between one another for now. Great questions there. A couple of links here. We've got a blog post on the AI Copilot, a couple of videos on there, embedded workflow builder docs in case you've not embedded the workflow builder yet. Embedded workflow builder product page, and then we've got an early access form that I believe our team posted in the Zoom chat. If you're interested in early access, yeah, fill out that form or reach out to your account manager at Prismatic, and we'd be sure happy to get it up and running for you because we are loving the feedback we're getting so far. We're getting some great constructive feedback from our existing customers that have added it so far. So thanks a bunch, everybody. It is 45, so we'll wrap up today. But thanks a bunch for stopping by. We'll see you next month. Take care.